All right, I might get started now because I realise everybody's probably got a fairly busy day on their plates today. So, welcome and thanks very much for taking the time to join our webinar today. Unfortunately, there won't be a mechanism for asking questions in today's session, but I'd be happy to take your questions offline. I'll provide a little bit more information later on towards the end of the webinar today about how you can do that. As you'll be aware, the topic for today's webinar is cybersecurity. This is a non-technical look at what cybersecurity is, the impacts on business and individuals, and how to defend against attacks and prepare for the worst. So let's get started. I'll just go through some facts about cybersecurity and just, I guess, highlight a little bit about the importance given the statistics I'm about to talk about. So on average, 1 in every 131 emails contains malware. This is the highest rate that it's been in about the last 5 years. And it's further expected to increase as hackers attempt to use malware like ransomware to generate money from unsuspecting people. It's a cheap and easy way for cyber criminals to compromise your business data. 78% of people claim to know the risks of clicking links in suspect emails, but many of them still do it. A lot of the time the response will be, well, I thought it was IT's job to protect us from this sort of stuff. Now, it's important to note that a lot of malware that we're seeing circulate nowadays is increasingly becoming harder to detect, and cybersecurity software is struggling to protect us from the most recent iterations of those viruses. I was reading an article a couple of months ago. This is a really interesting stat. 81% of data breach victims don't have a system in place to detect they've even been breached. And I was reading an article a couple of months ago about a data breach that occurred at the Commonwealth Bank between 2016 and 2017, where around 651 internal emails were sent to the wrong domain name. They were sent to cba.com instead of cba.com.au. Now, nothing untoward happened, and the owner of cba.com was deleting those messages. However, this is another example of a way that a data breach can occur. Another example is documents containing personal information being sent to the wrong address, or the wrong documents being sent to the right address. It's critical for staff in particular to understand the importance of handling personal information carefully. The consequences can go well beyond just being financial and can cause other harm, such as physical or intimidation, family violence, identity theft, causing emotional and psychological harm. Now, here's some more statistics about ransomware. Approximately 50% of organizations have been hit with ransomware so far. In addition, 56,000 ransomware infections occurred during March 2017 alone. And in the first quarter of 2016, $209 million was paid to ransomware criminals, with the average demand being around about $1,000. Unfortunately, less than half of ransomware victims ever fully recovered their data. Now, recently, a major fashion brand in Australia was hit by a ransomware attack. They didn't actually steal any data. What they did was they encrypted their design work, bringing their core operations to a halt. Their IT department was unable to locate how the criminals obtained access to their corporate network. They were unable to establish whether they were still inside the network, and they don't have any logs or any records of what actually happened. So that's quite concerning when you think about, our organizations and how we conduct business. You may have also heard of a recent high-profile data breach from a well-known HR recruitment company called PageUp. The personal details of tens of thousands of Australians have potentially been compromised. Clients of PageUp include large Australian companies such as Telstra, NAB, NIB, Coles, Aldi, Australia Post and Medibank, revealing a massive data breach. Leaked data included bank details, tax file numbers and other personal details for up to 2 million active users. That really hits home for me because I'm one of those users. I'm listed on their system, and so potentially my information's been leaked. Now let's look at some technology trends, because when we think about cybersecurity, we think of our work computer, our work systems, and those sorts of things, but it kind of goes beyond that nowadays. So it's not really just a business problem. With the accelerated growth in technology in particular over the past 30 years, it's becoming more important for everyone to be diligent about cybersecurity. Less than a decade ago, Facebook was still exclusively in university dorms. Twitter was just a sound. 4G was a parking space. Cloud was in the sky, and Skype was a typo. Over 3 million online users were added in the last 10 years. Over 5 billion videos are watched daily on YouTube, and some 300 hours of video content is uploaded to YouTube every minute. There's been a dramatic growth in social media platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram, which means more cyber criminals can gain access to your, more ways that cyber criminals can gain access to your personal data. The pure nature of users is also changing. We're seeing a huge growth in the younger generation, and this is kids under the age of 5 that regularly use technology, regularly communicate and utilize those sorts of services, and also the older generation as well. Technology is already blurring the lines between our professional and personal lives. It's not uncommon for many of us to reach for our smart devices soon after we open our eyes in the morning. Now, a thirst for information also brings with it a desire to use it for authorized activities like targeted marketing and unauthorized activities like human surveillance. Vulnerabilities in our devices can lead themselves to being hacked and security protocols overridden, allowing cyber criminals unvetted access to items such as the microphone or the camera on these devices. Manufacturers are always working to identify and patch these vulnerabilities. So it's critical as a user of technology to ensure your devices are updated as soon as it's available. So what's the best strategy to protect your organization? The first one, I'll just go through some practical steps here. So the first one is user education. It's important to recognize at this point that for some people, cybersecurity is not all about common sense. Allowing your staff to partake in cybersecurity awareness training, a little bit like WHS training, is really important. Communicating with staff about high-profile breaches or infections, particularly breaches and infections that relate to your industry. Discussing cybersecurity at team meetings, bringing up examples, bringing up techniques for how people can detect malware and ransomware emails and those sorts of things, and really openly talking about it. And also there's the option of testing users by running a malware scenario to establish your staff's ability to identify possible malware and then better understand whether more training is required. Managing privilege is a really important thing as well. Access to what people need to fulfill their role, no more and no less. As employees change positions, you need to make sure that their privileges change with those positions. When staff change roles, they often retain their current privileges and get additional access for their new role. For example, if you have a finance administrator come in, an assistant come into your organization, they'll get access to parts of the finance system they need. Maybe in a couple of years' time, they decide they want to change roles, stay within the organization, and they apply for the role of the PA to the CEO, and they're successful. So they get access to records that the CEO needs them to access. A couple of years goes past, a bit bored with that. They apply for the marketing manager's role because they're doing some educational work in marketing, and then they get access to marketing systems. Same thing happens, a few years go by, they apply for a sales executive role and they get access to sales records. All that time, that person's been building up a list of privileges that eventually has them accessing any and all information within the organization. Now, it's important to note that one method for malware to infect your system is to use the access privileges of the infected user. It then replicates throughout those files and locks your system, and then you're in the position of having to pay or think about paying a ransomware ransom to unlock those files. Another important aspect of data protection and cybersecurity is home and mobile working. How is your data protected outside of your business? Do you allow staff to work from home? Do they take work home, or do they log into your company system from home? What equipment are they using, or do you know what equipment they're using, and does it have the appropriate protection? For example, are they using a shared PC at home, and does this computer have up-to-date antivirus or malware software installed? Who has access to that equipment? Do the kids use it? Do the husband use it? Friends use it? And what are the protocols that that person uses around logging on and then logging off the system? I've heard a few horror stories of people working from home and leaving those company systems open and visible for anyone to see. We need to understand as employees and people that have access to those systems that just like you would lock your computer when you leave it at your desk at work, those sorts of systems need to be secured in a similar fashion when you're at home as well. In some cases, even more. Do you mandate that all mobile phones with access to company data are secured with a PIN number? Now that includes personal devices and company-owned devices. Anytime you allow an employee to connect up to their business or corporate email, that information is often being stored on their device. If their device is stolen, it doesn't have a PIN number on it, then potentially all those emails are available to whoever's stolen the device. So it's really important to mandate that. And often there's systems that when a device connects up to your corporate email system, your corporate email system can mandate that it needs to have a PIN number or it won't allow it access. Now, USB sticks can often be a bit of a controversial topic. They're extremely helpful. You can put files onto a USB stick, take them home, take them somewhere else, plug them into another computer, and use the information off there and so forth. So you need to understand and I guess ring fence how USB sticks are used within your organization. A lot of companies simply disallow access or use of USB sticks now because they often are a method of transporting viruses, or if the USB stick's stolen, an inadvertent way of data being breached or lost from your organization. So it's really important to understand that. And nowadays there's plenty of alternatives to USB sticks, plenty of secure methods for staff to be able to make data more portable. Google Drive, Microsoft's OneDrive, Dropbox, those sorts of things. So USB sticks are not as critical anymore in that sort of structure. So your staff, along with policy and procedure, play a critical role in your organization's cybersecurity and data protection strategy. It's really important to understand that. So that's all I had for today. That was a brief sort of overview of cybersecurity from a diamond perspective. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you have any questions outside of the session, please feel free to drop me an email. We have a couple of products that we're promoting at the moment that we hope will help organizations deal with cybersecurity in a more appropriate manner. So one of our products is a cybersecurity health check, where we're able to come in and do some analysis on your system to look at user behavior in regards to interacting with the internet and data. We're able to look at your technical defense systems and how they are configured in relation to cybersecurity. And we're able to provide you with a report on that information and some recommendations on how you can improve that. We also run cybersecurity awareness training for staff, and this is directed or designed for non-technical staff members. So it's a practical, the practical examples of their obligations in regards to cybersecurity. It's an interactive, open forum to discuss as well, so it's worthwhile thinking about that, because often what happens is in that situation, if you do have a data breach with the Australian Federal Government's Notifiable Data Breach Scheme, you need to, if you are an organisation that meets the criteria to report that breach, it's likely that the federal government will be looking at some of the systems that you have in place and some of the protections you have in place to ensure that it wasn't avoidable, I guess I could say. So it's really important to have that policy, procedure and training in place as well. The webinar that we've gone through today will be available on our website in the next few days. So if anybody from your organisation might be interested in this and they'd like to have a look at it, you can download it from our website. But thank you for tuning in today, and I wish everyone have a great day. Thank you.